Writing for the Daily Planet keeps me very busy. So does saving the world. It's hard to find time to sit down and put all the pieces together for writing a good blog post or article. The process can often be very frustrating. I needed a way that I could quickly organize my content and report on breaking news stories from around the globe. Using the Webflow CMS to create a blog has made the process so much easier. I'll show you how I set up all my recurring fields and created a reusable template so I can publish new blog posts with the click of a button. I may already have some superhuman abilities, but now you can too. Alright, so here's our blank palette we're going to start working with. I've already made a little navigation bar, just has the Daily Planet logo, a little heading, but our body's going to be where we're going to be working. So I'm going to go ahead and add a container first thing. I'll make the max width a little larger, about 1500, just so we have more room to work with on our big desktop view. And then I'm going to add right inside here a collection list. So here's our CMS. This is where you pull those lists of data that you end up creating. So we'll put that one in there, and you have to link it to something, but we don't have anything made yet. So let's go ahead and make that. Go to our CMS, I'm going to click CMS collection, create a new one. So you have the option to create your own custom one, but there are some templates up here for some popular different items. And look, it already has blog posts. So let's go ahead and click on that. And it creates a bunch of fields for us. So basically, these are all the fields that you can create. Post body, post summary, main image. These are all common things associated with blog posts. And on the right, you can see what that finished version would look like. So anytime you go to create a new one, these are all the fields that somebody or yourself would end up filling out. And it's going to be called blog posts. Perfect. I'll just hit create collection. Now, say you're working with a client or you don't have anything made yet, you don't have the content sent to you, you can add 10 items or 5 items. So you can go ahead and continue styling, even if you don't know what things are actually going to say just yet. But for us, we know what we're going to do. So I'm just going to click new blog posts and we'll create our own. First one we're going to do, let's do Lois Lane Digs Deep. It's going to be the title of this blog post. Post body, I'm just going to go to lorem ipsum generator over here. I'll just copy all of this so we have something to fill in our post body. Post summary, I'm just going to write Lois Lane. It covers a big secret lying beneath the heart of our city. I'm going to add an image for this. I'm going to do a main and a thumbnail. Here's Clark and Lois. I like this picture. And just in case, you can add a smaller one if you do thumbnails versus a main image, but ours are going to be the same size. I'm even going to add a color, because why not? This is actually something fun that you can end up incorporating into your styling later on if you'd like. I'm going to pick this kind of nice navy Superman blue color, and I'm going to hit create. And now we have our first post. Another useful thing we can do is link a collection list inside of our collection list. So in collections, we can just add another CMS collection. And for this, I'm going to do up here categories. So this way we can link a certain category type to each of our blog posts. So the two things that we're going to use for this is a name and an icon image. So as long as we have both of those, we're good to go. So I'm going to hit save collection, and we're going to add just 3 things here. First one's going to be business, and then I'm going to add a little business icon here. Got some icons on my desktop. Create. Great. So now we have this CMS just holds 3 different categories here. Now when we go back to our blog posts, we can go to the settings of this collection settings. We're just going to add a field, and this is going to be a reference. So now inside this collection list for each blog post, we're going to have the option to reference another CMS collection. And of course we want our categories. So the collection we want to reference is categories. Then we can click save. Save collection. Now when I go back to Lois Lane Digs Deep, we filled out everything we needed to already. But now when we go to the bottom, we'll see category. And Lois Lane, tackling issues, talking about the city and things in general as a whole. I'm going to make this a global category. Perfect. And I'm going to click save. So now we have 1 blog post, but I want to work with a little bit more when we get to the styling. So I'm going to go ahead and create a bunch more. All right, so there we go. I've added 6 blog posts in total. And I also just went back to our blog post settings and I added 2 more fields. I forgot: the date published and a read time. So now save our collection. Let's go back to our designer here. And now we have our actual CMS created. So now I can attach the blog posts, and you'll see here, boom, they already attach. It knows which ones we've created in our CMS. First thing, I will change this layout just to 3 column. So collection item, that's usually the one that you focus on. That's kind of the main div that you will style. And when you style one, you can affect each of them at the same time. So that makes things very easy. So first thing I'm gonna do, collection item, I'm gonna give this a set height of about 600 pixels. And then I'm gonna put a div block right in there. And I will give it a height and a width of 100%. So that way it absorbs the height and width set on its parent, which is the collection item at 600 pixels. And this is useful because if we make a change later on and change the height of something, we only have to change it in the one place on the collection item. Everything inside it is just gonna absorb whatever its parent's dimensions are. So looking at the finished version here, you'll see how the image, the thumbnail, takes up about half of the container itself, and then the content div below also takes up about half. So we can go ahead and set 2 more divs in here, each taking up 50% of its parent container. I'll make the height 50%, and then make sure we're in our blog post div, and I'll put another div, also height of 50%. And now we see we have 2 equal sized divs right there. I'm gonna go back to our container really quick and just add some margin on the top, so that way we have some space to work with right beneath everything above it. And I'm also going to add a little heading in here and make sure it lives at the top of the container right up there. Latest articles, and I'm going to give it a Bebas New font. I'll just increase the font letter spacing there just by 1, gives us more space. And I'll change the line height to 1.4 dash unitless and increase that just a bit, maybe 45. All right, now we go to our thumbnail div. So let's look at how to structure this really quick. So we have the picture of Clark and Lois, and when we hover over it, the color fades away. So what I want to do is create one div that contains it. We already did that. And I'm going to create another div to hold the background image, and then a second div on top of that, positioned differently, that will be the color overlay. Here we have our thumbnail div. That's what's going to be the kind of parent container for all of these. First, I'll add a div block. I'll make that height 100%. So it takes up that 50% portion, right? Because its parent container is 50%. It's not looking to the actual 600 pixel container because its closest parent is the one above it. And what I'm going to do here is go to our settings, and you have some options here. Anything in purple means that you can reference the CMS, because though it looks like a normal workspace, remember we're working inside of our collection list and collection item, which means it's referencing all of the data from our CMS. So you can attach certain values from your CMS to different elements, whether it would be headers, images, background divs, all these things. So first thing I'm going to do is get a background image from our blog post, and it's asking you where you want to pull it from. And we have those images we uploaded, right? So I'm going to do thumbnail image, and boom. Look at that. You'll see all of our things start to populate in each of our different collection items. So I'll just go back to the styling panel for this, and then I'll just go to the background so we can style it a little bit more. Click cover, center, and there we go. Now we have beautiful images showing up. They're taking up 50% of their parent container. Nice little feature. So we made this one first, right? The Clark and Lois, but it's doing it kind of in order of last created to the oldest. But if we want to affect this, we can definitely change the sort order. Just go to our collection list and go to the settings. And you'll see here we have some more options: filters, sort order, limit items. I want to do sort order. I'll add a new one. So what I want to do is, let's see, created on from oldest to newest, because we made that one first, right? So this will reverse the order of everything. And there we go. You'll see we got Clark and Lois first, and then Wonder Woman is the last article. All right, so let's make sure we're back in our thumbnail div. Remember, it's containing the thumbnail image right now, but I'm going to add another div, and I'm going to make this also 100%. And you see here how it's being pushed beneath it. We want it to stack on top, right? So how can we do that? We can just change its position to absolute. But when we do this, we need to make sure its parent container is positioned relative. So this is our div block. Let's just name this really quick. So let's make this thumbnail image overlay. So that's positioned absolutely, but it's looking to its parent to make sure what it can be relative to. So let's make thumbnail div, just go to change our position relative, and we'll just make 100% width as well. And we just have to make sure it's positioned cover full right here. So absolute position full. And that way it takes up the full display of its parent container. And now we can just do a little background color for this. And again, if I go here, I can get background color from blog posts. Remember we attached a color for each of our different CMS items. So I can do this, and each one, look at that, looks hideous. But we can just lower the opacity, and then each one will have its own kind of unique color there. All right, so in our thumbnail image overlay, let's make the opacity, let's see, maybe about 25, just so it's a little bit subtle. Make sure there's a transition set. Opacity is good because that's what we're affecting. Make a little bit of ease there. And then when we hover over the image overlay, we're going to drop that down to 0, just so they can see a clear image there. So now, and it's applying to all of our different collection items, right? So we did it to one, and it affects all of them. Beautiful. So the top half is done. Let's go to our blog content div now. First thing we want to do is add a heading in here. Now this is our H1. Remember, we only want to keep one H1 on the page. This is an H3 up here. I'll just make these H2s. That should be good. And we're going to get the text from the name because we want the name of the blog post. There we go. Those come in nicely. I'm going to change the font to Bebas New. Add that letter spacing. And then looking at the finished version, you'll see here, this is one kind of piece of text we're grabbing, and the minute time is another piece of text, but then the read is its own word. So structurally, we're gonna have to put all this in a div so we can flex it, right? And then this is gonna have to be its own div again because the time is changing, but the word read is what's staying still on all of them. So first, let's just start by making one div. So I'm gonna add a div in here, and then I will add a piece of text, and this is going to be the date published text. Great. Make sure this lives inside the div block there. Great. I'm going to add a secondary font here of bitter. And then I can change the line height, make this a little bit larger. And I can even change the color down a little bit lighter. And in that subheader div, we now want to add another div block. Let's make sure that lives there. Perfect. And now in there, we can add a piece of text. Let's grab that. This will be the read time. So see here, it says 10 minutes. Let's make that also bitter. Let's make it all caps. Same font weight stuff here. So in our read time div, now we just want to add another little piece of text here. And that's going to be just say the word read. And make sure that's the same. And see how they're all stacked on top of each other now? Well, we want our read time div to be displayed flex, so they go side by side. We can give a little margin next to the word here, maybe 5 pixels. That's, let's say, 15, 1.4. This is 15, 1.4. Great. And now we go to the subheader div, and they're also stacked. We want them to be side by side. There we go. And we can add some right margin. All right, that's coming together. And now next thing we want to do is have this little paragraph text beneath, and that's going to be referencing the little summary of the content. So in here, just add a paragraph, and we're going to get the text from post summary. 20 pixels looks good. Let's go to our whole blog content. Let's add a bunch of padding in here. See, there's a gap in here between this. It's probably from this, the auto margins up here. Now we can add some padding on the top as well for these. I'm going to give a background color to all of this. Let's make this just a light gray. Let's go to our collection item, add some margin beneath it so they can separate. Let's do 40. I also want to curve the top of these, so I'm going to go to the thumbnail image overlay here. Let's give it some radius just to curve the tops out. There we go. So it curves on the top, but on the bottom it still has that point. And the last thing I want to do is just attach those category icons. So let's go to our blog content div, and these are going to be positioned absolutely on the bottom right. So we want to make sure its parent, which is this div, is positioned relative. And I'm going to add an image, and I'm going to get the image from icon in the category. You'll see it pops up. Width and height, maybe let's try 40 pixels. And we can position this absolutely on the bottom right of its container, which is the blog content div, and we can give it some right and bottom margin. Let's see, 15 and 15 maybe. And now look, each one has its corresponding category icon, and that lives right on the bottom. So that's the basic structure of our blog posts, but obviously everything contains the information in the blog itself, right? So we're going to want to make sure we can click on these and then go to the page that holds the article. To make sure they're clickable, we have to put everything we just did inside of a link block. So let's go to main blog post div. That's the biggest thing, right? So I'm going to go to the collection item, just add a link block element here, and then I will drag this whole thing inside the link block, and you'll see it collapses. That's very annoying. So to fix this, we have to give this link block a height and width of 100%. So that way it absorbs that 600 pixel styling of its parent, right? Also, all of this is now blue with ugly underlines. This is kind of the default behavior for links. So what we're going to have to do is just go through here and just change the font's color again, just to kind of give it a setting of what to work with. So if we go to the link block, let's just click this text decoration none, and then all that disappears. And now we have to make sure we go to our link block, and the settings, we have to tell it where to link to. Oh, right down here. So it has here, we have collection page. So that's definitely what we're targeting. Choose a collection page. Current blog post is what we're going to do. Because that's saying when we click on it, take me inside this current collection list item and bring me to that page. So now when I click preview, I can hover all of these and they're all, see that pointer comes up? That means it's clickable. When I click on this, aha, it brings me into the, up here you'll see the Lois Lane Digs Deep item, and you can toggle through all your different articles when you click on these. And the best thing is, like our collection item, all we have to do is style one of these pages and it'll absorb into all the other ones. So when we see here, when we click on an article, it brings us to this page here, and we've got that nice image that fades into the article itself, and we've got all this other content beneath. So let's build all this out as well. So I'm gonna go back to my home page really quick. I am going to copy my nav div here. I can just make it a symbol actually, create new symbol. This will just be called nav. And now when I go to the Lois Lane Digs Deep page, I can just click symbols and drag a nav, boom, there it is right on top. So in our body, first thing I'm gonna do is add a section, and I'm gonna give this a height of about 60 viewport height. There we go, it takes up a nice big chunk. Let's go to our settings of this hero section, get background image from main image. There it is, but we don't want two of them, so we'll go down to our images, make sure this is set to cover, and we're actually going to do top for this just so we can see their faces. When you resize, it definitely becomes more visible, but we want to make sure it's also visible on desktop. And now here I want to add another overlay. So remember how we did that? We're going to have to make this section relative, so then we can absolutely position another div on top of it. This is position absolute full because it's going to cover its whole parent. I'm going to give this a background color, a gradient. I'm going to make the first color just transparent, and then the second color is white, so that way it fades right into the stuff below it. There you go, it looks nice. Now moving along in our body, I'm going to add a container, and I'm going to give it a class of container as well, just like our home page. And just in case we make different changes to this container on this page, I'm going to give it a combo class of main blog container. That way what we do here doesn't affect what we did on the home page. So you'll see here we have the article title, the description again, and then just the publish date. So let's just add those three elements in here in our container. This will be an H1. I'm going to get the text from the name, Lois Lane Digs Deep. In our container, let's make sure we next can add a little paragraph, and this is our plot summary. And the next thing will just be a little piece of text, which will be the date published. All right, that's looking good. So let's go back to our container. Next thing we want to add is the actual blog content. So that's going to be a rich text element. And let's do post body. And this is just our big lorem ipsum text. So it's nothing actually readable, but it fills the space so we can see what we're doing. There we go. So that's a blog article right there. Next thing I want to do is make this little Clark Kent about the author section right beneath it. So in our container, we're going to add another div. Let's just give this a height so we can see what we're working with. Maybe 300 pixels. I'm going to add a div in here. I'm going to give it a height of 200, a width of 200. I'm going to set a background image. Let's upload a picture of lovely Clark here. There he is. Set it to cover and center. And now since our height and width are the same, I can just go to radius down here and type 50%. And then we've got that nice circle. Give it a box shadow. Let's see, 1, 7, -2 is good. Just add some dimension there. Wonderful. And then I'm going to add another div in here, just that will hold the actual information. That's just going to be a heading. Let's make this an H2. This will say Clark Kent. And then I can add a little paragraph in here. And I'm going to type out my own thing. And you see how it's all positioned right beneath. We don't want that. We want it side by sides. Let's target the about the author div as a whole, and then we'll change it to flex. So the two divs that live inside it, which is Clark and the text. And then maybe let's make this one take up, let's make it like 60%. Here we go. And then we can do flex center. And let's just make this div have a margin here. Now we've got our little author bio that lives right beneath every article. I like that. So the next thing we want to do is create the section beneath that has the other articles listed, so the user can quickly just jump to each of the next articles, right? We want to have a little preview so they're intrigued to keep reading. So I'm going to create another div right in our container here. Let's give this a height of 600 pixels again, just so we can see. I'm going to add another heading. Let's call this more blog posts. And we want to add another CMS, right? Like our homepage. We've got that there. Let's link it to our blog post CMS. Again, let's give it that 3-column layout. And each of our collection items, I'm going to add a div in here. Let's make these guys 300 pixels. And it's going to have the same thing, right? That kind of hover effect. So it's going to be a div and then 2 divs inside it. Height's going to be 100%. Let's give that a background image from our thumbnail image. Okay, let's center those. Make sure the collection items have that padding beneath. Let's give them all a radius of 10. We want to create a div on top that has that background color with the 2 pieces of text. So let's put this more blogs image. Let's make that our parent container. Position will be relative. Let's add a div inside here. This will be position absolute. It'll cover the parent. Let's give it a background kind of color overlay of gray. Great. And then let's give it a little heading, and this will be an H3. Let's get the text from the name of the blog article, obviously. Let's make the color of this a whiter color so we can read it. Bibas Nu, our friend. And let's also add in another piece of text, which will be our date published. Slightly lighter white. Let's give this some padding on the left and the right. And we want that on the bottom left, so let's make sure on our blog overlay we can display this flex. And then we can click vertical. Make sure that was back on the bottom, align left, great. And we're also going to need a little padding on the bottom here. Beautiful, there we go. So let's make that only appear when they hover over it. So more blog overlay, let's make the opacity 0. Let's give this a transition for opacity, great. And then the blog overlay hover, opacity will be 100. Great, so now we mouse over all of these, you'll see beautifully. All the article names come up with the date it was published. But you'll see this is the Lois Lane Digs Deep article, and we don't want to link to the Lois Lane Digs Deep article here, right? So we can actually do another filter here. Well, first let's do that filter from before. So we'll go here. Let's do sort order, date published, oldest to newest. That'll switch it. So what we can do here is on our collection item, just go to filters, and let's just make sure this is, so blog post, so the current blog post is not the current blog post. So this way, everything that appears down here won't be the one that's above it. When we click that, you'll see it already knows not to include the Lois and Clark one. And that disappears. And that just leaves us with all the other ones. But again, we want these to be links that we can click on and go to the next article. So let's just quickly add a link block in here again. So let's make sure our collection item has a link block inside it, and then we'll move this div inside here. And again, everything collapses, but that's just because we have to make sure our link block has a height and a width of 100%, not pixels. There we go, and let's make sure the link block links to a collection current blog post that it's selected on. So when we click preview, we've got our blog post, scroll down, we see all the other ones we just created, and I want to go read the Batman article now. Click on that, and look, it brings me here, and you'll see we already have the entire page formatted with all the Batman info. The title changes, the summary changes. Clark stays here because that wasn't pulling collection listings. That'll just be on every page. And when we go down here, you'll see Batman no longer is an option, but the other one we were just on is. So we can click on all of these, and look, we have beautiful articles for each of our blog posts created. Super flexible, super convenient, and we only had to build one of them out. And now look, it gives us all of the other ones. Such a great tool. CMS is a lifesaver. Saves you so much time. So let's say you're passing this to a client, or you want to add more blogs after your site is already published. How can we do that? So let's just make sure our site is published, and then we'll be able to go to our editor view here, and then it takes you to your own website with all the blog articles we've created. And this is what a client would see also if they were working on this. So say you made a blog for them, and this is them in the future trying to create a new blog post. They would just go to collections, and here we click blog posts, and these are the ones that we've already created. And this is them trying to create a new one. Click new blog post, and then all the fields that we have earlier are here to fill out. So let's make a new one. Let's say Harley Quinn plans massive bank robbery. Our post body, we can just paste that lorem ipsum text there as filler. And let's just say the humorous femme fatale breaks into Gotham's most secure bank. And we'll add an image for this. Got a picture of Harley here. And let's see, color, we can give her maybe a pink color because she's hot pink. category. Let's make this business. If it's a bank being robbed, date published, we can pick anything. And the read time, let's say it takes 7 minutes to read this. So this is someone typing out their whole blog. They've already filled out all the fields and they're ready to publish. So they click create. So it's staged for publish. And now we can just go back here and we'll see at the bottom, look at that. It's already created for us. It has the overlay effect. It absorbs her pink color. It has all of the information we just planned out. And then when we click on it, it has the whole page created for her already. And beneath are all the other articles that we can click on. And then we would just click publish, and that would save all of the changes, and you've created a new blog post that's ready for the world. So how great is the Webflow CMS? It's such a dynamic and very useful tool. It's going to save you tons of time. It's also really useful for parts of a website if you're building out, company portfolios, the different team members who work there, recipes, your blog posts like we did, song lists, menu items. And it's important to remember that if a client's going to be adding more of something down the line, you should definitely structure it with CMS initially. That way when you pass it along, they can just click a few buttons and be on their own. So keep building, keep designing. We all may not be able to fly or shoot heat waves out of our eyes, but it doesn't mean we can't be super in our own way.